what the budget debate means to you.
And eating healthy.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Black Nouveau. I'm Milton, Dockery.
And I'm Faithe. We're glad you could join us. This week, we'll offer some tips on eating healthy and inexpensively.
We'll look at the upcoming week of prayer for the healing of AIDS and meet a singer keeping the plight of Haiti in the public eye.
But first, the big story for the past few weeks has been in Madison, revolving around Governor Scott Walker's effort to have public employees pay more for their health care and pensions and curtail their collective bargaining rights. Milton has more.
For weeks, protesters in Madison have challenged Governor Scott Walker's attempt to end collective bargaining rights for public employees. The governor maintains that the state is broke and the only way to fix it is to have public employees pay more for health care and retirement benefits. And the way to do that is take away their collective bargaining rights. Marc Levine, founding director of UW-M's Center for Economic Development, disagrees with the governor's assessment that the only way to fix the problem is through public employees. Dr. Levine, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Milton. It's good to be here.
Dr. Levine, let's place this in the proper context. Is the state of Wisconsin broke, sir?
No, we're not broke. That's an exaggeration. It's meant to convey a level of crisis that really isn't at the level that the governor wants to state that it's at. We clearly have a serious budgetary deficit at this point. It's been caused by mostly the Great Recession, which blew a hole in our budget, creating a shortfall in revenues and an increase in expenditures. It's happened to every state but a few in the country. And in fact, Wisconsin doesn't even rank particularly badly in terms of the extent of our deficit compared to our overall spending. We have, for example, half the deficit level that states that the governor likes to look at as really good examples of fiscal management like Texas have. So we're not broke. We have a deficit. And we need to deal with that deficit, but we don't need to deal with it in this incredible crisis way in which the governor has stated it.
So for the sake of clarity, with the example of Texas, I'm from the great state of North Carolina. Same thing there. No collective bargaining for public employees, but yet instead their deficits are in much worse shape than the state of Wisconsin. Could you just develop that a little more?
Exactly, because the major cause of these deficits are not outlandish public employee settlements. The major cause of these deficits are an overall decline in revenues because the overall economy isn't operating at full capacity. And so with higher rates of unemployment, people are not paying taxes, people are getting foreclosed out of their homes, that's putting them in financial binds. So there are many, many other reasons other than public employee compensation, which has been amply documented, particularly in the state of Wisconsin, is not out of line either with public employees in other states or with employees in the private sector.
But Doc, why place it in the context as if the problem is being caused by the public sector? Why?
Well, my sense is it's ideological. I think there's an ideological opposition to public employees, unionized public employees. I think there's a sense that government, from Governor Walker's perspective, that government is too large and that in order to reinvigorate the Wisconsin economy, we have to squeeze public employees, squeeze unions, and give a whole series of tax breaks to the wealthy and to corporations. It's the classic national Republican playbook, really for the last 30 years, but it's being brought to Wisconsin with a vengeance. And I think that's the real nub of this. This is an effort to remake Wisconsin, to get us away from the progressive tradition of high-quality public services and high quality of governmental intervention in the economy, and get us on the road to, I think, the Mississippiization or the Alabamaization of Wisconsin.
Let's develop that more. So here's what I hear you saying. By the corporate tax rates being very low, the state is not really generating enough revenue to cover the deficit. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not just the corporate tax rate. That's certainly a part of it. Okay. No question about it. We've basically cut our corporate tax rate in terms of the share of our revenues that are coming from it in half in the last 30 years. We've also cut the rate significantly in the last 15 years on the wealthiest of Wisconsinites. The marginal rate at the top bracket was about 11.75% about 10, 15 years ago. It went down to 6.75. We gently nudged it up a little bit, but it's lower than it's been. So we've cut taxes on the wealthy. We've cut taxes on corporations in the state. We've lost revenues from that. That's helped create this deficit gap. The other problem is that we have a slew of loopholes that our corporations, which are reaping record profits right now, by the way. They're at historically high levels, but those loopholes have essentially enabled our corporations to avoid paying, in many cases, any taxes at all. A recent study, for example, showed that 2/3 of Wisconsin's largest corporations, many of which were profitable, paid no taxes.
But you argue the way to cover this deficit is slightly higher taxes on those corporations and those at, I think, about $200,000 salaries?
Right. I think for the short run, for the budget repair bill that we're looking at, not the larger $3.6 billion deficit, which I think will take some shared sacrifice to get us through in the short run, then I think we'll be on a pretty good footing. But certainly for the short run deficits that we need to cover, I think it's easily covered rather than mandating in a radical way 8% cuts on health care benefits and pension benefits for essentially middle-class public employees. Rather than mandate that 8% cut and to abolish collective bargaining, that a modest 1.5% marginal tax rate increase, a temporary, let's call it a millionaire's tax, because it would mainly fall on millionaires in the state, and other states have done this, coupled with closing some of these corporate loopholes, which have enabled so many of Wisconsin's corporations to avoid paying not only their fair share, but any share of their taxes. Yeah, I think that can get us through the short run and the medium term, and then I think we can have a kind of a larger negotiated shared sacrifice to get us through the next period.
Doc, in 30 seconds, how and to what extent is this whole thing political?
I think it's quite political. I think this is the culmination, in my view, of a 30-year mobilization by the most powerful interests in the state of Wisconsin, corporate interests in particular, a mobilized business community, and an extremely ideological right-wing Republican community to impose a certain model on us. And this is kind of where they've ended up. And I think this is now something, in order to preserve progressivism, we need to fight.
Join us next week as we continue this discussion with Dr. Marc Levine.
With much of the Middle East and the world in turmoil, it's easy to forget that Haiti is still suffering from the earthquake that rocked the island nation 2 years ago. Liddy Collins introduces us to a singer who wants to keep Haiti's plight front and center.
Can you imagine? Some people go days without eating, some people go days without seeing. So want to say, my friend, I care for you.
This is the Holy Yours Band, rehearsing in Sheboygan, Wisconsin on the campus of Lakeland College. This band has created and performed songs that keep the Haiti story out front. Tuesday, January 12, 2010, a 7-point earthquake hit Haiti. Days of aftershock followed. 3 million people were affected. Over 250,000 homes collapsed or were damaged. An estimated 230,000 people died, 300,000 injured, and 1 million left homeless. And relatives and loved ones not there, left with heartaches.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, yeah!
The Holy Yours Band is extremely sensitive to this story because their member, James Trazile, a student at Lakeland College, is also a native Haitian, and James was one of those left with an aching heart. Orphaned at 15, and now this earthquake has taken more of his family. Things were not good in Haiti before the earthquake.
And now it's way worse. It's sad to, you don't have a home. My house, where I used to live is completely destroyed. Everything is gone. So it's sad to go back to a place that you call home, but there's no home to go to. It's just not a good, feeling of going home. Because home means a place where you can feel that everybody is there for you and you want to have all this fun with your friends. But the only sense of home is the family, the people who survived the earthquake. Those people are my heroes.
The day of the earthquake, Trazile was leaving class and happened to stop in front of a television.
I saw Wycliffe talking about Haiti. I was like, what's going on? And I was watching CNN, and the headline says, Haiti earthquake. Oh, I just couldn't believe it. And I tried to call my family, and I couldn't reach them. So at that point, I was completely thoughtless. The first person I talked to after the earthquake was my cousin, Ernso. And he told me that he was on top of the roof when the earthquake was playing his guitar, when the earthquake hit. And all the houses around his house were collapsing.
Have you talked to any of your relatives since then?
Yes, I've been talking to him a lot.
How are they surviving?
It's pretty hard in Haiti right now. Everything is expensive, but they're surviving somehow. I'm not sure how exactly. I'm not sure if I was in Haiti right now how I'd be surviving, but they're trying to do their best and to stay alive. I think that's the most important thing.
Josue Michelle, Trazile's cousin, was teaching outside of Port-au-Prince when the earthquake hit. He had to run from a second-floor building. The first thing he did was try to contact family and then try to get home. What did you see?
Actually, when we were about 20 miles to Port-au-Prince, we've seen the roads, they're all broken. And we've seen a lot of people walking from Port-au-Prince, walking from far, 30 miles, trying to go away, trying to leave Port-au-Prince, but they couldn't find any transportation. They just walk. And I heard them talking about losing families, losing. It was very sad to hear someone say, "Oh man, I've lost them. My 2 kids are died. My 2 kids are dead, and I lost my husband. I lost my wife, and and a lot of people under the rebels." It was so painful, and seeing someone dying in front of you, some were just dying. It was so emotional, when you see all those dead bodies and you try to call your family, and all you get is the people you're calling is not available. I'm like, what the heck is that? And just started crying, get nervous. Then when I got to see my family, and you cry, and because you couldn't stand it.
Michelle said it was beyond imagination what he saw that day. He said help is there and they're doing the best they can. Here in Wisconsin, James Trazile has started a campaign entitled Get Up for Haiti to keep people informed of what help is being given and how much more is needed.
If we could just pause for a second and think about the people in Haiti, and I think just thinking about him is a great thing. So my plans are to get the words out there any way I can through my music, and raise funds, partner with different organizations to get the word out there to the world, to tell the people it's not over yet. The people are still struggling in Haiti.
From under the rubble, man, it's so awful. Can you imagine losing everything that you fought for, losing everyone that you cared for? Oh.
Before the earthquake hit, I talked to my cousin, and then the next morning, I couldn't reach him. And that's pretty much the idea of the song, Tomorrow is a Million Miles Away. You never know what's coming after tomorrow. So make sure you tell the people next to you that you love them.
Find a way to help, to rebuild their nation, the poorest nation and the Western Hemisphere. Please help Haiti.
In today's tight economy, trying to eat healthy can be a major challenge. Nutritionist Yvonne Greer says you can eat healthy on a budget if you plan properly. Liddy Collins has more.
Nutritionist Yvonne Greer said eating a healthy meal on a budget means needing to plan meals prior to going to the grocery store.
When you start looking at cutting costs, when you can make your own food from scratch, you're going to be cutting the most costs of all. Anytime that you buy food out or even order out, you're actually paying more for that meal than if you had cooked that meal at home. So getting used to and planning to cook from scratch, making sure that you have the proper ingredients in the house and making sure that you've already planned out so it's not a guessing game, that's going to help you stretch that food dollar even more.
Some find this planning hard.
When they see that they only have $5 in their pocket because they didn't plan ahead, they'll think, well, I can go to the fast food place and get a meal for $2.99. But say, for instance, if you had a family of 5, that almost $3, that's $15. If you took that $15, you can buy a meal that might last you 4 days versus just 1 day for that one same $15. So you can buy your chicken, you can buy your potatoes or your vegetables, you can get in on the sales of your fruits and vegetables, and if you have some of those staples, that meal might last you a good 4 days and off of $115.
Some of the staples are
a variety of your lean meats, fish and poultry. Then you have your fruits and vegetables in the refrigerator. You have a variety of grain products, whole grains, which could be whole wheat pasta, brown rice. They do have a lot of different types of grains that you can get. A lot of people don't eat as much of those, but you can get couscous and different other grains that you can have in the house. And then having some of the basics like, you know, flour, seasonings, herb seasonings would be much better than having the ones with salt in it, like onion powder, garlic powder, that type of thing. And then having maybe some oils, vegetable oils in the house. Olive oil is good. So those are some basic things. And if you tie that in with some onion and green pepper, you have the making for some wonderful meals.
And then there are those calcium-rich foods, such as your milk products, and some traditional calcium foods like greens.
People don't realize greens has a lot of calcium in there.
And then there are the protein foods.
Fish, poultry, but majorly your beans, your nuts, your eggs are all part of those groups. And many times we don't think of our beans as being the major protein source, but it's a complete protein. And we are recommending people eat more meatless dishes and more bean dishes.
Are there certain vegetable, you said cuts of meat or chicken one should buy?
Certain cuts? Well, if you're on a budget, you may have to look at some of the cuts that might have a little more fat than what we think of, like your chicken quarters. Many times you have some buys on chicken quarters, but the way you cook them can actually help, like bacon, roasting, broiling, steaming. You don't have to deep fat fry them. And then the other thing is pulling that skin off and not eating the skin. You're going to be reducing the total amount of fat. So if you have to eat some of those chicken quarters and things that we visibly can see more fat on, remove the skin either before or after, trim off that fat, and you'll be reducing the calories, saving money at the same time.
And when shopping for your healthy food staples, go along the outer perimeter of the store.
Where you see like your fruits and vegetables, you get to your meat products, your dairy products usually is on that perimeter, and you can get most of those staples that I talked about by shopping the perimeter. Then you may want to look for your whole grain products, which is going to be in the middle, your seasonings, which is going to be in the middle, and make sure you have your powders instead of the salt sources. And then you can fill it in with your bread products and that type of thing. So we try to get people to get away from box mixes and at all possible making things homemade from scratch. That's a lost art for some people. It's something that people will have to relearn. But that stretches your food dollars so much more when you can make it at homemade from scratch. Even things like pancakes can be made homemade from scratch.
What are foods people can buy to stretch their dollars and still eat healthy?
I would say if you're looking at some good food choices to stretch a meal, you may want to look at having things that you can put in combination to make like casserole or skillet meals. So you can put your meat with your starch, like your noodles with your ground beef, and then you can add your vegetable and maybe some tomato or cream sauce to that to bind it together. But things that you can make a casserole or something like that that can go and further. Beans is great for that. You can make a pot of beans, you can get 1 pound of beans and it may feed at least 6-7 people. So things like that that stretches, that you know you can get more than one meal out of, is what you should be looking for.
Greer's advice for stretching that food dollar: pre-planning is key. Look for coupons. And don't let healthy food spoil in the refrigerator. Use it to make soup or stews.
We really want you to focus on looking at what are the sales, what are the fruits and vegetables available that you can afford, how can you take the money that you have and get the best use out of it.
You can find links to various sites on healthy eating on the Black Nouveau webpage on MPTV website at www.mptv.org.
According to recent estimates, HIV/AIDS affects 1 out of every 22 African Americans. Sunday begins the Black Church Week of Prayer for the Healing of HIV/AIDS in Milwaukee. We are joined by Pastor Teresa Thomas Boyd from Matters of the Heart Christian Ministries and Jim Addison, Coordinator, African American HIV/AIDS Program for the Black Health Coalition of Wisconsin. Welcome, both of you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Pastor Teresa, you're the coordinator of the Christian Community Caucus of Milwaukee, a group of 40 inner-city churches. How many of the 40 are involved in this project?
Right now we have about half, about 20 of them, which is a good number.
And there's been a strong criticism that the Black church has been slow to respond to this issue because of the behaviors associated with the disease. Do you still find that to be true?
I think we've improved in that area. I do believe that there are challenges, but what has happened over the last 3 to 5 years is that churches are becoming more educated, which is one of the most important things. And now we're actually learning how to advocate. So once churches understand that you can educate your people and advocate things that will be positive within the church as well as in the community, they'll make a big difference.
What are the churches doing all year long to stay involved in this issue?
A number of things. One is to give education sessions throughout the year to congregations. For example, one of the things that we've been doing is to have peer education, and this would be for young teens. It's alarming that even children 15 and under are in high numbers when it comes to having HIV/AIDS, and so we're taking young people to get them involved. We're also then educating, going into Bible studies. You know, you don't have to start anything new. The church already has traditional things that they do, and what we have found is that we just add into that health care. That's a big issue in churches as well. So you take those issues that are already being discussed and you put in this important crisis issue like HIV/AIDS.
And have the young people been responding well to the information from the church community?
Surprisingly, yes. They actually are much more open to discussion and to talk about things than the adults. I have found in particular we have talked more with young ladies because we do find that because of different behaviors where men and women are engaged in terms of intercourse, what they find is that young ladies need to know more about it, and we're finding that they're open to it, they're willing to discuss it, and they're also willing to deal with some of their own personal issues, which I think is very important.
Jim, speaking to that, you've been doing this work for a long time in the community, educating the public about HIV/AIDS.
Sure.
Do you still find that people think that there's an epidemic, or is there an epidemic?
I think for the most part, people are coming around. I mean, you know, in the beginning, it was really hard to get churches involved, but I think that improvement, like Pastor Thomas has said, has come, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done, of course.
Are the numbers still telling us that we're at risk?
Yes, the numbers are. I mean, overall, for African Americans, it's still a disparity. I mean, we're 5% of the population, but over 50% of the new cases. 60% of all the women that contract HIV are African American, and just here recently, particularly here in the city of Milwaukee, African American men who have sex with men is the #1 rate of infection in the city of Milwaukee. So there's, you know, everybody who's in HIV, so to speak, is trying to address that problem. So African Americans really need to be concerned.
Why are we still at such a high risk?
Wow, it's a lot. That's a heavy question, but I think we need to talk about it. I think that there are some things that are involved with it that HIV is just taking advantage of that aren't altogether health related. I mean, economic conditions, poverty, social norms, and things that are going on. HIV is just thriving in the environment. So there's some things we've got to talk about to help us get a handle on HIV.
And besides HIV, what other health issues is the Black Health Coalition of Wisconsin dealing with?
I think the best way to answer that is to say there's no health condition that we're not dealing with. You know, if it comes up on the radar, we're trying to deal with all the disparities. Obesity, we're dealing with high blood pressure, diabetes, everything. We just seem to be #1 in mostly everything. Infant mortality. And so we're just trying to address everything from the Black Health Coalition.
Well, you definitely have your work cut out for you.
No doubt.
This week, Sunday, is the Black Church Week of AIDS, HIV/AIDS, and what activities and where will the event take place?
Well, there's a kickoff event that kind of kicks off all of the activities. That's at New Covenant Baptist Church, and there is going to be a worship service after a free dinner. The free dinner is going to be from 2 to 3. And then from 3 to 5 is going to be that worship service. But throughout that week, churches are going to be involved in various ways, from pastors preaching their messages on HIV, Bible classes, as Pastor Teresa has said. We're also going to have educational sessions. And the best way to find that out is we're going to have these activities posted on our website. Because what happens is a church that is participating fills out a form on how they're going to participate. They let us know that, and we'll try to disseminate that information on our website.
And what is that website?
www.bhcw.org.
Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we close tonight, a reminder that there is still time to enter to win tickets to see Ma Rainey's Black Bottom at the Milwaukee Rep.
We've got 4 pair of tickets for 4 viewers who can answer the following question. In what city do most of August Wilson's plays take place?
If you know the answer, give us a call at 414-297-7556 or email us at tvviewer@matc.edu. Give us the answer, your name, and a phone number.
4 viewers will each win a pair of tickets to the production, which is at the Milwaukee Rep through March 27th.
And that wraps up this edition of Black Nouveau.
Remember, in the coming week, do something to expand your world. Good night.
Good night, and thanks for watching.